morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Dr. Jan Fortman with Relationship Matters TV. I hope everyone is having a beautifully blessed morning, afternoon, or evening. Last week I talked about how happy we were here in Chicago, and we're still happy because the weather is beautiful. I think I can probably stop wearing a jacket. It's just, we're happy. We're happy. And I hope everything is going well with you. I'm going to jump right in today with the guest that is with us today. Let me tell you about it. And this is a subject matter that I know quite a few will be interested in, and I know you're going to get some value, a lot of value for this. If you are a daughter that grew up without a father, you need to be watching this. As a matter of fact, if you know some women who grew up without fathers, go get them. Tell them to tune into this episode today. So let me tell you who I have. She doesn't want to say doctor, but I'm saying doctor anyway. Dr. Renita Gibbs. Doctor, what all can I say about her? Let me say this. She's a successful entrepreneur. She is a fatherless daughter advocate. She is a life coach, and her goal is to empower and encourage women who have not had fathers in their lives. And this is what I really love about her. She seeks opportunities to extend to women the tools of liberation and freedom from the feelings that you can get from being a fatherless daughter. You can have feelings of bondage, rejection, even go into codependency. And her focus is to have women personally dismantle the mental bondage and take up the torch of knowledge, wisdom, strength, and courage to rise above the obstacles and pull from deep within themselves, ourselves, to believe and to manifest the dreams that lie deep within us. I'm going to bring to you, as they say in the theater, without further ado, I'm going to bring to you Renita Gibbs. And you know what I want to say right quick before she even talks? She just came back from Dubai. You know, like when I grow up, I want to be just like you, Renita.
Hey,
So welcome, 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 welcome.
welcome. I would just want to say thank you for having me as a guest on your show this evening, this morning, wherever people are watching around the world. I want to say thank you, Miss Jan, for having me as guest this evening.
I am I'm just so happy. You know what? I just did a brief introduction of you,
Uh-huh.
but tell me, who are you?
Yeah. Well, my name is Renita Gibbs. I'm out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. I'm a fatherless daughter advocate. I advocate for women who was raised without a biological father. The name of my company is called Fresh Wisdom Services, and what we do, we help redefine women who was raised without they were raised without a father, beyond being fatherless. And our mission and our goal is to help transform the lives of women all over the world. Because you know just as well as I do, Jan, it's a growing epidemic as far as the fatherless generation, and the statistics and the numbers is real.
So when you say statistics, what are you talking? What are the statistics?
Well, believe it or not, they say 92% of fatherless daughters end up in divorce. They say about 71% of fatherless daughters are dropouts, as well as about 70% of fatherless daughters end up being, they get pregnant in their teenage years. So the numbers and the statistics are real as far as the fatherless daughters generation.
Wow. Wow. And I didn't know it was like that. So when we talk about fatherless daughters, describe to me your definition. What is exactly a fatherless daughter? I know we think, okay, well, it's daughter without a father, but exactly what is it?
Okay, fatherless daughter is a female who grew up with an unavailable, unattached, or absent dad. Now, what I want to do is take a few minutes to explain what I'm talking about. When I say your father was unavailable, he could have been unavailable by way of incarceration. He could have been unavailable by way of the military. Your father and your mother could have been divorced or separated. So that's what I mean when I say he was unavailable. Then when I say that, you can be a fatherless daughter by way of your father being unattached. You and your father could have been raised in the same household, but it was no connection between the two of you guys, so it was no attachment there. I talked to a lot of individuals who tell me, well, Renita, I was raised with my dad. We was in the same household, but it's no connection. There's no bond between the two. Or your father could have been absent, like mine, was not present in my life at all. He left at the age of 6. I didn't see him again until I was 39 years old. So that is my definition of a fatherless daughter. Your father can be absent, unavailable, or unattached.
Wow. So so the effect does it that it has, is there a different effect to a daughter if the father is in the home and considered fatherless, or when the father is just not in the home at all? Is Does it affect a daughter in different ways or in the same way?
I would say it probably would affect a daughter in the same way, but I really wouldn't know that because I didn't have a dad in my household. But what I can say is that a person who has a daddy in their life, when they see a man coming and going, that may be all that he or she may need to sustain to say that their dad is in their life. So I would think the effect is pretty strong between both parties, whether he's in the home or even if he's not, even if he's in the home or not in the home. I know if he's not in the home, it's going to affect you even more. But some dads are in the home, but they don't have a connection with they children. They may be working a lot. They may be workaholics or whatever. They may travel a lot, and it still can affect a child.
So, okay, so your father wasn't in your home. How did that affect you?
Oh my God. How did it affect me? It affected me because you know what, Jan? I always wanted to be daddy's little girl. I was that girl that always wanted to be daddy's little girl, and I was never afforded that opportunity because, like I just stated, my daddy walked out of our life at the age of 6, and I didn't see him again until I was 39. But it was very detrimental to me for the simple fact that I can remember from high school, and I can even remember from elementary school on how, we used to have various things at the school, PTA meetings. I used to have track meetings. I used to have softball practice and things of those natures. And, other kids used to have both parents that showed up at those events. And I never really, had that opportunity. It was always my mom. She was very supportive and she was there for me to attend all those events. However, it affected me because I always wanted to be that little girl that had a dad growing up. I wanted my dad to teach me some things that I think a daddy should have instilled in a young lady at an early age. But, like I said, I wasn't afforded that opportunity. I can remember very well that I was very athletic in school, and I was playing, I think, softball. And one of the coaches asked me, where did you get this skill from? How to play softball so well? Did your daddy teach you how to throw that way? And I was like, no, even I probably had those traits from him, but he didn't teach me because he wasn't in my life. So it affected me in more ways than I can imagine.
So now, okay, so that was when you were a kid.
Right.
But when you got to be an adult, how did not having the father in your life affect you as an adult?
As an adult, it affected me pretty much the same way because, I always wanted to be that individual that had that daddy. That's all I wanted to do was be able to travel and be able to be there, be supportive, have that support from my daddy. I wanted his praise. I wanted his protection. I wanted his presence. I wanted all those things. Even as an adult, I used to always visualize me and my daddy going and do things as he grow older, as he get older, him and I going out and doing things and, spending that quality time together. Even as an adult, I can literally say I really, really felt the unction of what it felt like to not have that. That really, really affected me. It's amazing on how even as a child it affected me, and even as I got older, it still affected me in my life.
So, has it affected your relationship with men?
Well, to a certain degree, because as a fatherless daughter, we have daddy wounds that show up. And from time to time, daddy wounds show up in my life. And I have to literally tell my husband, hey, that's one of them daddy wounds that showed up. Sometimes we have,
Wait a minute. What is that?
okay, let's say for instance, a daddy wound may show up like, let's say for instance, you don't know how to be, okay, like for instance, in my household, I didn't know how to accept, how to always accept things from my husband. It was a challenge for me initially because my husband is a very giving type person. So, when he used to give me things, sometimes I didn't show that appreciation that he probably wanted to see when he gave me something initially. And that's because in my household growing up, I didn't see that as a child. So when I became an adult and God blessed me with a God fearing man and a man who wanted to give me all that chivalry and all that love, I didn't know early on how to accept it. It was something that it had to grow on me. So, and then every now and then, I can be honest, is that, he may, I'm used to getting what I want and doing what I want. So if I say I want to go to Red Lobster and he say, no, I want to go to McDonald's, I may have a fit if I don't get a chance to go to Red Lobster because that's when I'm accustomed to getting what I want. So I had to learn how to deal with some of those daddy wounds that were showing up.
Okay, 'cause we got a question already. It came
Oh,
in over my text. It says, what were your feelings toward your dad from age 6 to 39?
wow. What was my feelings towards my dad? Well, initially, at the age of 6, I really can't say that I had some feelings, but as I got older, probably around my middle school, high school age, my feelings was I felt lonely. I felt as though he had abandoned me. I felt as though he had left me. I was kind of upset. I was angry because I wanted to know why was he not in my life. I knew my father knew exactly where we were because I live in Atlanta, but I'm from Augusta. So he know that we was in Augusta, and my feelings was a little, unease with him because I feel as though he just forgot about us. He wasn't interested in finding out who we were or finding out was we still living or what was going on with us.
Okay, okay. Girl, they just coming in. It says, okay,
That's
all
excellent.
right.
I love it.
Okay, so before you got married and found the man that you wanted, did not being a father, I mean, but what is it? But not having a father, did it impact the kind of men you were dating or looking for? In other words, I think what they're trying to say is, were you looking for your daddy
Oh,
in men?
absolutely. I would literally say that, proud of me marrying my husband in 1997. Um, I was looking for love in all the wrong places.
I was going to say, looking for love in all the wrong places.
I was looking for love in all the wrong places. And not only that, I never really dated no one my age. I always was attracted to older men. So I can say yes to that question, that I was always looking for a daddy type figure in a boyfriend, put it like that. So yes, that played a significant part in me as far as, the type of men that I dated and the type of men that I didn't date while before I got married.
Okay, okay, all right. So now, so you, so you decided to search for your father. Now, how did your mother feel about you searching for your father?
Well, I can say that, as long as I can remember, I used to always have the conversations with my mother about what did my dad look like, who was my dad, what traits I got from my dad. I used to always talk to her about qualities of my father, because she used to always say, you look just like your daddy, you act just like your daddy. So, she used to say those things to me. So I was always very inquisitive about what he looked like. And I can literally say that that I lost my train of thought, but I can literally say that my what was your question again? I lost my train of thought, where I was going with this conversation.
Renita, don't ask me that because I'm looking at these other questions. Okay, audience, um, put it in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat again. That way I can re-answer it, because I was going somewhere with
Wait
the
a minute.
conversation.
See, I can say that, I'm having a senior moment because I'm a senior.
Well, I can't say that because I'm not a senior, but
Oh my
I would
goodness.
love
That's a shame.
to address that question again. So they got
We
to read
can't
it
have a
again.
senior moment at the same time.
We're just gonna have
No,
some
no.
fun
Okay,
tonight.
so how are you like your father? You said your mother. I asked you. Now I remember.
Okay.
How did your mother feel when you were started searching for your dad, and then you were talking about, you used to ask her things because she would say, oh, you look like your dad, you just like your dad, or you act like your dad, and then you were explaining.
Well, she felt very good when I told her that, when I used to ask questions and everything. But the older I got, the more serious I got about the search. And I think, I can tell that it was some things that probably took place that she didn't want me to know. What those things were, I don't know, but I noticed sometimes when I used to speak with her about, I'm gonna find my daddy, I'm gonna keep searching until I find my father. Her attitude and her demeanor used to change from time to time. She never, said don't do it. She used to always say, he's up there, because believe it or not, my father was a retired sergeant major out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and she knew this.
Oh,
So she used to always say, he's up there at Fort Bragg, But she encouraged me along the way to find my father. She was very supportive. However, I did all the work.
okay. So another question came in. I told you what was going to happen, girl. Okay,
Good.
so this is a text from Maxine. She says, "Were you looking for a good provider in your husband?"
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's something that a dad does. A dad provides. So when I was, when I started dating, and when I started looking for candidates, I ain't gonna say looking for candidates, because I wasn't looking for nobody. He found me. But when I decided on a candidate, of course, I was looking for an excellent provider to be able to take care of me just like a father would be able to take care of his daughter.
So, so Renita, how did you find him?
How did I find my daddy?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I was on a speaking engagement. And all throughout my childhood life, after my mother and my father separated, as long as I was in high school and I was in college, I was able to get military benefits. And I never forget that I went to the hospital to get a regular checkup. And when I went to get the regular checkup, they used to always update the records and ask you, are you still at this address? Are you still at that address? And of course, I was not at none of those addresses that my father was at. But when they gave me the address, I always kept that address. So I just happened to be in Fayetteville, North Carolina, heading on a speaking engagement. And I have always kept my father's address in my wallet. And I never forget, after the driver had picked me up from the airport and we was driving to the hotel, I passed a sign and it was like Fayetteville, so many miles up the road. And I was like, wow. And at the time when I seen Fayetteville on that sign, my heart started beating. And I said, you know what? I have my father's address and I know he was at Fort Bragg. And I said that I was going to knock on the door. I was going to see if I can find him since I was that close to him. And the rest is history. That's exactly what I did. And we was able to make a connection.
So, did he know you? I mean, did he see himself in you? You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. He knew me. Like I said, after I got finished with my event, at the time we didn't have the what you call them phones, the map. We had the map quest. I had to Google the address from the hotel, and I had the driver to take me there. And when I initially connected with my daddy, the first thing that really just threw me off was on my way to his address. I saw my maiden name on the mailbox. And when I saw my maiden name on the mailbox, I got nervous. I started sweating. I didn't know what to do because I knew that was my daddy's house. And even though I was talking all this stuff about I'm going, but the closer I got there, and when I seen my maiden name on that mailbox, I was like, oh my God, I am here. And believe it or not, Miss Jan, I got out of the house and I knocked on the door. And when I knocked on the door, I didn't hear any movement in the house. And I had a girlfriend with me in the car. And I never forget that I knocked and knocked and knocked on the door. Nobody never came out to the door. And when I went back to the car, I told her, I said, you know what? At least I came this far. Nobody was home, at least I came. That's what my mouth was saying. But my heart was saying something totally different because I felt as though I got this close to him and nobody was home. So, I was a little disappointed because when I seen that make name on that mailbox, I knew I was at the right place. Now, whether or not he was going to be inside the house, I didn't know that. But that fast forward a little bit, the next day was Sunday. We went to church. We got out of church service a little early. So my girlfriend said, hey, since we got out of church early, let's go back by your dad's house. And I was like, let's do it. So we went back by my dad's house. And when we went that second time, I seen a car in the driveway with a veteran's tag on it. So my heart started beating real bad then because I was under the impression I knew somebody was in there. And to make a long story short, I knocked on the door and I heard movement.
that's what the question was. It says, what happened when you first connected with your dad? That was the next question that's coming in here.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I knocked on the door. And when I knocked on the door, a man came out of the door. And when he came out the door, he was my complexion. He had all white hair. So I see why I have had gray hair since high school. But he had all white hair and he was on a cane. And I never forget, I looked at him and I said, hey, how you doing? And he said, how you doing? And it was amazing because I said, do you know who I am? And he looked at me and I looked at him and you know what he said? He said, no, baby, I don't know who you are. Are you at the right house? And that was like a blow to my heart because here I am looking at my biological father and he's telling me he didn't know who I was. So I looked at him and I said, do me a favor, hold my hands. So I reached my hands out to his hands. By this time, he done put his cane down and he's leaning up against a car and we're standing there holding hands. And as we're holding hands, I look him in his face and I say, you know what? I'm Renita. And when I said I'm Renita, his eyes got big. He grabbed me. We hugged each other and we embraced each other. And then all of a sudden, it was like a force just pushed us back from each other. You may not be able to understand this, or some of the listeners may not be able to understand it, but a force pushed us back from each other. And I looked him in his eyes and I said, you know what? I love you and I will forgive you.
Wow.
And the rest was history. And the Lord blessed me with the last 6 months of his life.
Oh my goodness.
The last 6 months I got blessed with.
So, what did your dad say about his absence? Did you all discuss that?
We talked about it, and all he kept saying, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. That's all he kept saying, how sorry he was. And it was a blessing because later on that evening, we exchanged phone numbers, and I told him that night that I had an engagement that I had to be at. And it was such a blessing because when I when I left my dad, he wanted to see me so bad that night that he rode around Fayetteville to several different hotels trying to find me. But my hotel wasn't in Wilson. It was in my maiden name, which is Gibbs. So several of the hotels that he went to looking for me, he couldn't find me at those hotels. So make a long story short, I was able to get with him that next day. And no, I was able to talk to him on the phone. He told me, I've been looking for you all night. I wasn't able to get with you. So we spoke on the phone. And I actually got a breakthrough on the phone because, like I told you in the beginning of this interview, is that I always wanted to be daddy's little girl, right? So I never had the opportunity to say daddy. So when we got off the phone that night, I was like, I love you, daddy. Good night, daddy. And when I said that night on the phone, it was like shackles just broke off me. And it was everything. It was a priceless moment in my life.
That that was, oh my goodness, that story that gives me chills, and like you say, you were so blessed to be able to find him, you know, before he passed. That that is really something when you think about it. Because I'm a fatherless daughter, so to speak,
Right.
you
Right.
know. So now my father wasn't in my house. Um, when I was younger, real young, I thought my mother's second husband was my father because that
Mm,
was the last name that I had. But as kids, you know how kids snoop, right?
right.
Your your parents not home, you going through, and I was very inquisitive. And so
Hmm.
your parents are not home and you're going through all kinds of stuff. And I started seeing things and pictures and this and that and reading stuff I wasn't supposed. My mother had a cedar chest,
Okay.
and I would raise up that cedar chest, and I was just rummaging and going all through all kinds of things. And that's when I saw my father. But so
Mhm.
now, when I was maybe like about 11 or 12, then that's when my mother was telling me about my father.
Wow.
And I'm like, "Oh, I already know that." Well, how did you know? And so then I met him and I thought, wow, and you have that feeling like, okay, so how come you're not here, with me?
That's
And
it.
how come you didn't seek me out, and stuff like that? So you do get have those feelings, and as you get older, now my mother never said anything negative about him,
Hmm.
But then after that, I started meeting other members of my family on his side,
Mhm.
you know, and like you said you forgive your father. I had a conversation with my father, and he led a very colorful life. And as a matter of fact, he was in that entertainment industry,
Okay.
and he was Etta James' manager for a while. So he was up
Wow.
in that, him and my grandfather, big time. But talking with him and the way he was talking about women,
Mhm.
that's when I looked and said, you know what? He really did not have the capacity to really be a father,
Right.
you know, which freed me
Mhm.
as to, and so I get where you coming from with that realization, whatever realization we come to as far as our fathers are concerned. But yes, it does affect a girl's life in so many ways. And there's another question here. I'll put it from Sandy Barney Ennis. She said, "Did he have other children?"
Yes. I had a sister probably 1 year younger than I did. I was. Me and my sister here in Atlanta grew up together with our father. And then once I reconnected with my dad, I did find that I had a sister who did not appreciate me reaching out to my dad. She wasn't receptive to me. However, she's my sister and she's 1 year younger than I am, and I have not seen her since my father transitioned in 2010.
Wow. And you telling me you found a sister. Girl, I found a sister.
Oh, okay, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I have never met her personally.
Hmm.
My older brother he met her, but I never met her. And all I know is that she's in California, but I would love to
Yeah.
meet her, but I've heard that before. I had a friend who didn't know who her father, well, her mother would never talk about her father.
Hmm.
And when she found her father, she had like brothers and sisters, you know, and fortunately for her, they all welcomed her, and she welcomed them. And she said that she, when you talk about fatherless daughters and the way that affects people, her mother never got along with my friend's son. So that was her grandson. What she found out was that her son looked exactly like her father.
Wow.
And that breakup, you know, I guess was a bad breakup because he left the family.
Hmm.
And that's when she understood. No wonder. She said, when I finally met my father, it's like, oh my God, my son is the spitting image of my father. And now I understand a whole lot. I need to go to a commercial. Oh, Sandy Barnes did say this when she said, her loss, not yours.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Miss
Mhm,
Sandy. You are absolutely right.
mhm. Her loss, not yours.
Yeah.
Well, Renita, I got to take a quick break. This is a quick break.
Okay.
Uh, got to pay the piper, and so we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about your book because you have a fantastic book, and we're going to talk about. We touched on the fact that you were an advocate, but I want to go in just a little bit deeper of what all of that means. Okay? All
Okay.
righty. All righty. We will be right back with Dr. Renita Gibbs. So don't go anywhere. So we are back with Renita Gibbs. So now, Renita, you wrote a book, an award-winning book, and tell us a little bit about your book. A lot about your book.
Okay, my book is called Finding Daddy. It was written in 2000. Well, it was released. It was written in 2010. I released it in 2011, and the book came out of obedience, pretty much, because after I connected with my father, I was laying in the bed one day, and I was just really just playing back everything that happened in my life and how it happened and how I was able to make the connection with my father and some of the things that I was so fortunate that I was able to do with him. And God dropped it in my spirit, and He told me that the journey that I had been on looking for my biological father wasn't even about me. He told me I needed to put it in a book so I can be a blessing to others. Because if He did it for me, He can do it for them. So what I did, I had to be very transparent as far as the content and the information I shared. It's pretty much my life story on how me not having my father in my life, how it affected me throughout my life, and how what kind of impact it made on my life, and some of the experiences and some of the things that I went through. In the book, it's going to make some people laugh, it's going to make some people cry and everything, but the way that we ended the book was kind of like a cliffhanger. So if we want to do a continuation of the book, we can do that. But the book is it's a page turner. I've been very fortunate to talk to a lot of people who have the pleasure of reading the book, and they were so inquisitive about what's going to happen next that they was just turning the pages and everything. And we're getting ready to embark upon Father's Day, and it's a lot of people that's getting ready to celebrate their fathers, and it's a lot of us who don't have a father to celebrate. And it's just another way that I can give back to individuals by reading my journey, so they can hear my heart and hear my story, because it means it's more than a book to me, because it's something that I walked in. It's my journey. It's my story.
Let me show them the cover of your book, Finding Daddy. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So now we're go. How can they get your book? Is it on Amazon or?
Yes, ma'am. They can purchase it off Amazon. They can go, and then when they go to Amazon, all they have to do is type in my name or the name of the book. They can go to my website as well, purchase it off the website. You can go to Books of Millions, Barnes and Nobles. It's online. There's a
Ooh.
lot of opportunities for them to get a copy of the book. However, if they order the book from the website, they will get an autographed copy of the book from me, because in the content they can tell me exactly who they want me to sign the book to.
Now, I'm going to type in your website. What is your website?
It's renitagibbs.com.
Well, that's easy to remember.
My name.
Okay, so that's easy to remember. Let me put it right here, right now. RenitaGibbs.com. There you go.
Now, one of the things that you asked me before we went to commercial was as far as being an advocate.
Yeah.
As being an advocate for a fatherless daughter community, is that we have a group of young ladies, and we're a part of a network, and the network is called the Fatherless Daughters Network. And we're a group of individuals who have like minds and like spirits, and all of us are pretty much fatherless daughters. And what has happened, they have created a safe environment where women can come and talk about their own personal journey, and get feedback, and get information and healings, and talk about the trauma that probably has taken place in their life. But as a certified advocate, it allows me to be licensed, to be trained, as well as to be able to facilitate workshops, and any kind of speaking engagements, any kind of workshops, or any kind of teaching on being a fatherless daughter.
So is this online, or is it based in Atlanta only, or is it virtual also?
No, it's online. It's online. It's the Fatherless Daughter Network. Yeah, the Fatherless Daughter Network is online. And our goal is to, in the next 5 years, our goal collectively, because it's a group of women, to reach at least 1 million women who are fatherless, to help them become free from, the not being able to have their father in their life, and what kind of childhood trauma they went through and how it affected them, to help them get to the point where they're able to turn their pain into their passion, and start talking about some of the things that has helped them. Because that's exactly what I did. I turned my pain into my passion, and now I'm able to, talk about it. It's very therapeutic for me, because as I'm talking to the listeners and your audience, I'm really talking to myself as well. But I want to
Wow.
share with you one more thing. One of the highlights of me connecting with my father was the opportunity that when I got married, he didn't walk me down the aisle. And I was able to renew my vows. And my father was able to walk me down the aisle. And that was a
Oh,
priceless moment for me, because I always wanted that. So, in essence, with me finding him, I was able to get that accomplished. And that was a beautiful thing. That's
oh
something I
my
will
goodness.
always remember.
So your clientele, or um do you have more younger women, than, so let's say, older women, or how is that as far as your advocacy group, the women who join?
Well, believe it or not, it's in between. It's in between. I say more of a 40, 50 age. High end clientele as far as the age group. Now me personally, when I'm doing like one on one, or if I'm doing some group, I have a group that I can do between the ages of 18 and I mean, I'm sorry, between the ages of 13 and 18. That's one age group that I work with. And then I also work with some women that are much older than that, 18 or older. But it's just amazing, because there's a lot of older women that's still out there that's mad about things that happened way back when, and they're still angry. So, one of the oldest ages that I had the pleasure of working with was a young lady around the age of 77 years old. She was still hurt and broken by things that transpired in her life with her father, and she was carrying that to her grave. And she was able to get a breakthrough. We was able to talk about some things. So, it touches every age group and every nationality. It's out there.
Wow. Okay, so here's another question. What is the most pain that some of the women have expressed by not having a father in their life?
I would say the most pain would probably be just going through all the rejection. The rejection is a hard piece, because when your father, that one person who's supposed to love you, protect you, and provide for you, reject you, you grow up and you start dealing with rejection. You start dealing with abandonment issues. You start, fatherless daughters have trusting issues. And then, like I said, a lot of fatherless daughters, they come very promiscuous, and they looking for love in all the wrong places, and they start seeking guidance, and they start seeking validation from all different men out there. And what I try to tell people is that fatherless daughters, we have a scent on us that only we can smell. Because as I'm out in the world traveling and doing things, I can recognize another fatherless daughter. And when we have a conversation, one of the first things I can say, based on some of the things that come out her mouth, you was raised by a single parent. And the first thing they want to know, how you know that? And that's because fatherless daughters recognize other fatherless daughters.
Girl.
Look, the same way
Wait,
we
wait,
can,
wait. I was getting ready to say the same way we connected.
the same way we connected
Is
in Chicago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow.
It is amazing. And it also has everything to do with a spirit of discernment, but you can identify other fatherless daughters. Think about it. Most fatherless daughters, they want to be loved. They want to be in a relationship. So when you see a woman out, out, in wherever, and she's got a lot of her body parts being revealed, she's seeking attention. Nine
Ooh.
times out of 10, she's a fatherless daughter. 9 times out of 10, if you have a conversation with her.
So
I'm
all
not
these,
saying all of them are.
yeah, I start saying all, but a lot of
Yeah,
so these young ladies you see when boobs out and all that out. Yeah,
absolutely.
well, we know they seeking attention, but I
Attention,
never thought. Well, you know what? You are right because actually, if the father was in the home, there's no way on earth
absolutely. They're
that he
looking
would
for
let
love.
her
They're
leave that
looking,
house if he's an involved father.
absolutely,
If
absolutely,
yeah, if she is not a fatherless daughter, it would be
absolutely.
no way on earth that he would let her leave that
No
house
way. Your
looking like.
circumstances don't define who you are.
So, okay, another question. Has suicide ever been mentioned as far as that a bad experience when you're talking with these women or young ladies or whatever? Have you run across any that really just felt like they wanted to commit suicide, leave here because of the rejection that they felt from their fathers?
Absolutely. It's within one of the top five. A lot of women
Really?
who are not happy with who they are and what's going on in their life. And a lot of women went through a lot of childhood trauma with their dad, whether it was molestation, whether it was being raped, or not only just not your dad being there. Some dads have done some things to some individuals with that childhood trauma. Well, I have actually talked to several individuals who have considered have talked about suicide thoughts. They have talked about being suicidal and just in other words, like, well, my daddy didn't want me, my daddy didn't love me. What's the purpose of me being here? And I constantly, have those individuals to seek some kind of counseling because they need some kind of therapist to be able to, talk to them because mental health is really real.
Yeah, because this is Mental Health Month.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's real.
Wow. This is really eye-opening. I've always thought that uh daughters need a mother and a father,
Absolutely.
you know,
Mhm.
because I think I was talking to someone and we were talking about that like a daughter knows how a man is supposed to treat her if
Right,
she has like a real father, not if she's a fatherless daughter.
right.
But yeah, if the father's in the home and is involved and then that way she knows what it's supposed to be like.
But with all the social media and all the programs that's on the TV, a lot of these younger girls, that's how they're being raised. And you look at Hollywood and the things that they're promoting on the TV, a lot of girls think that it's okay to have a kid without a father. But in actuality, the child is the one, I'm a product of that. The child is the one that is the one end up suffering in the long run, especially when the husband or the wife or the boyfriend and the girlfriend can't get along. They end up normally taking it out on the child. And that's one of the reasons why in my household, me and my husband have made a commitment. I mean, a commitment that if anything happens in the relationship, that we was going to do the right things by way of the kids because we both come from single parents. So we know what that feel like and we know what that looks like.
Okay, what here's another question. Have any of the women that you are involved with, have they wanted to seduce someone they thought were a father image?
Well, if they have, they never shared it with me. So I
Okay.
don't know, but like I said, I know a lot of women. They look for males' approval and attention. So
That could
it
be.
could be a point. But like I
Yeah.
said, I never had no one to share that with me as
Okay.
far as that is concerned.
So now on, because we only have a few minutes left. On the back cover of your book is something that is so profound. I want you to please read that to the audience.
Okay,
If you don't,
this is my synopsis. So
okay,
when somebody pick up my book, the majority of things that people do is go straight to the back and see what it's about. So
okay.
I'm going to read the synopsis of the back of the book. It says, my journey began 24 years ago. Throughout my childhood and my teenage years, I was engulfed with endless answers to questions on why. Why? Was I without a father compared to all my friends? Why did I have to go without a father to take me to the father daughter functions? I wondered why my father was not there to tell me about the birds and the bees when I began to start liking boys. I wondered why I dated older men and I was attracted to them. I thought about 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. When I understood as a child and I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. I tried to move on, but I still felt a huge void in my life. It was like a puzzle with missing pieces. My life was not complete. I remained obedient, hopeful, and I prayed to God daily. I asked him to allow me to connect with my biological father. I battled many disappointments, no responses to mail, phone calls, or even visits. Yet I kept my faith with all the assurance I would meet my father one day. I met a man in 1997 named Derek Gibbs. He was there for me during many tearful, restless, and fatherless nights. I truly love, admire, and appreciate my husband for understanding, encouraging, and supporting me at the most difficult time in my life. My husband embraced me with laughter and said, I understand. It's time to grow up, baby. You can call me daddy. I appreciate and I love my husband for all the support he has given me, but I still wanted the love from my natural father. My long journey and search ended in June 2009 while attending a business trip in North Carolina. My prayer was finally answered. I finally made a contact with my father. We met, we hugged each other. Words cannot express the joy and the completeness I experienced deep inside. To you, my daddy, from your baby girl Renita, I love you. I forgive you I forgive all the years we missed together. I need you and you need me. We are family.
Girl, that is so wonderful. It really is. It got a quick little comment that came in. She said, "I'm listening, but many young women or young women, excuse me, are looking for a sponsor, even if it means having a child for child support." So I guess this just like finding a daddy in so many different kinds of ways. Now, Renita, if people want to get in contact with you, they can go to your Facebook page. But now this is a whole lot for them to see. But if they just go in and see, it says Renita Gibbs and then see your picture.
Well, it'll say Renita Wilson Gibbs on Facebook.
Okay, Renita Wilson Gibbs.
On
and
Facebook.
and they'll see you on, they can find you on Facebook, and then you're also on Instagram. And so with Instagram, so uh just say Instagram.com/Renita Gibbs.
Right, on Instagram.
Okay, all right, okay. So right before we go, what advice do you have for any woman that that wants to find her father, or wants to have questions with her father, or wants to be in a position of reconciling their feelings as far as being a fatherless daughter?
I would tell anybody who's searching for a loved one, especially a father, and if it's something that's been some kind of, you've been stirring up those gifts in you, and it's been something that you wanted to do, I would tell you to go for it. With the technology we have today and the tools we have today, I mean, it's available for anybody. So I would say go for it. Put your pride down, put all those emotions in a bag, and go ahead and get delivered from whatever's holding you back, and go ahead and get free and reach out and do whatever you need to do to find that loved one. Even if your father is no longer living, I would recommend that they write a letter to their father expressing how they feel, and they can either bury the letter or they can either burn the letter up. But they need to get those things off their chest and get it out of them so they can express it. Because I know some of the listeners' dads are probably no longer here, but they still may have some anger. They still may have some unforgiveness in their heart. Because see, the forgiveness is not about them, it's about you. So you want to get free. So whether you got to write a letter or whether you got to do your due diligence and do whatever you need to do to find your father, take the initiative to do it. Because one thing I know, Miss Jan, if he did it for me, he can do it for them too.
All righty. Renita, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. I mean, you have given some heartfelt, valuable information, and I'm hoping that any of the viewers who are fatherless daughters and who have questions, that they reach out to you, Renita Wilson Gibbs, on Facebook, or Renita Gibbs on Instagram. And is there like, if they want to call you or email you, is there like an email,
Yes,
something like that?
they can email me, Renita.
Wait a minute, I'm gonna type it.
Okay.
Renita, go ahead.
1913
1913
at gmail.com.
at gmail.com. All right, I'm gonna put that on there in big so they can see that. We're not gonna scroll that. We just,
Yes,
there it is.
that's it.
Renita 1913 at gmail.com. Okay, if you didn't write it down, take a screenshot. And for you non-techie folks, just like, get your camera, take a picture. Look, I just learned how to do the screenshot on the computer.
I
Screenshot.
understand.
I know I
Technology is moving
can't
so
take my
fast.
camera, take my phone and my camera. No, there's a key.
Yeah.
So, Renita, thank you again so much for bringing, your information. Just thank you. It's really been wonderful. It's been great. And I'm going to invite you back because this was so very important.
I want to thank you for having me.
So you have a beautiful, blessed, I know you're in Atlanta, so you have a beautiful, blessed rest of your day.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
This has been so wonderful. It really has, and I know she's brought some value to you, and I know that you have enjoyed. So look, if you want to know where your father is, you want to reconcile any issues you have, reach out to Renita Gibbs. I will see you again next week on the Relationship Matters show. Remember, there are all kinds of relationships and all kinds of relationship matters. See you again next week.